The morning sun spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of our Chicago penthouse, casting golden streaks across the marble kitchen island where I stood, cradling a steaming mug of coffee. It was a Tuesday, 8:47 a.m., the kind of crisp autumn day that made the city feel alive. Ethan, my 16-year-old son, had already left for his early lacrosse practice, and Lily, my 13-year-old daughter, was upstairs, her music blaring through noise-canceling headphones as she prepared for school. The house hummed with the quiet rhythm of routine, a rhythm I had perfected over 20 years of marriage to Mark Bennett, one of Chicago's most sought-after corporate lawyers. Our life was a polished masterpiece. A penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, invitations to black-tie galas, and a love story that friends envied. Or so I thought. That morning, a single number on a bank statement would unravel the illusion I had spent 2 decades building. My name is Laura Bennett, and at 42, I was the woman everyone admired but few truly knew. I had been a freelance journalist in my 20s, chasing stories with a hunger that matched Mark's ambition in law school. But when Ethan was born, I traded deadlines for diaper bags, choosing to be the backbone of our family so Mark could climb the ranks at Kessler and Tate, the city's premier law firm. I organized charity auctions, hosted dinner parties for judges and CEOs, and ensured our children thrived in private schools. Mark called me his anchor, his voice warm with gratitude at firm events, his arm snug around my waist. I believed him. I believed in us. Until that morning, when I opened our joint bank account to pay Lily's tuition and saw it, a transfer of $3,500 to an entity called MH Consulting. The amount wasn't staggering. We were wealthy. After all, with investments and a lifestyle that absorbed thousands without a second thought. But something about the name, MH Consulting, gnawed at me. It wasn't a client I recognized. And Mark's firm handled all his expenses through a corporate account. I scrolled through the transaction history, my coffee growing cold. The transfers were monthly, consistent as clockwork. Dating back 3 years. $3,500 every 30 days, totaling over $126,000. My pulse quickened. I told myself it was nothing, a business expense Mark hadn't mentioned. He was meticulous. But he wasn't secretive. Or was he? I waited until evening to ask. Mark came home late, his tie loosened, his dark hair slightly mussed from a long day. He kissed my forehead absently. Already scrolling through emails on his phone. "How was your day, sweetheart?" he murmured, not looking up. I forced a smile, stirring the risotto I'd made, its saffron scent filling the kitchen. "Fine," I said lightly. "Just paid Lily's tuition." I noticed a transfer to something called MH Consulting. "What's that for?" His fingers froze on the screen, just for a heartbeat, but I saw it. His eyes flicked to mine, cool and assessing. Before he laughed, a sound too smooth to be genuine. "Oh, that? Just some consulting fees for a case. Boring stuff. You don't need to worry about it." He reached for a glass of bourbon, his back to me, and changed the subject to Ethan's upcoming game. I nodded, playing the part of the trusting wife, but my stomach churned. Mark's laugh had been too quick, his gaze too guarded. That night, as he slept beside me, his breathing steady, I lay awake, replaying the moment. I thought of the past year, his longer hours, his frequent emergency meetings out of town, the way he'd started locking his phone after years of leaving it on the counter. Small things I dismissed as stress from his promotion to senior partner. But now, they glowed like warning signs in the dark. The next morning, after Mark left for the office, I sat at my desk in the study, the city skyline sprawling beyond the window. I logged into our bank account again, my fingers trembling. The transfers to MH Consulting were only the beginning. I found another account, one I hadn't noticed before, linked to Mark's name alone. Monthly deposits of $2,000 flowed to a bank in Minneapolis, to an individual, Melissa Harper. The name meant nothing to me, but it felt like a splinter under my skin. I opened a browser, my journalist instincts kicking in, and searched for her. Within minutes, I found a social media profile. Melissa Harper, mid-30s, a marketing consultant in Minneapolis. Her photo showed a radiant woman with auburn hair, laughing with 2 children, a boy, maybe 4, and a girl, barely 2. My breath caught. The boy had Mark's eyes, the same piercing blue I saw every day in Ethan. The girl's smile mirrored Lily's, a dimple in her left cheek. And in one photo, partially obscured, was a man's silhouette, his posture achingly familiar. I clicked through Melissa's posts, my heart pounding. A caption from last summer, grateful for our little family getaway. Couldn't do it without you. The photo showed the children on a beach, and in the background, a man in sunglasses, his hand resting on Melissa's shoulder. I zoomed in, my vision blurring. It was Mark. My Mark, who'd told me he was at a deposition in New York that week. The room spun. I gripped the desk, while rising in my throat. This wasn't a fling. This was a life, a family. Built in secret while I raised our children and polished his image. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the screen, the city's hum fading to white noise. 20 years of memories flashed through my mind. Our wedding in a Napa vineyard, Mark's vows promising forever, the sleepless nights when Ethan was born. Mark holding my hand through every contraction, the way he'd twirl Lily in the living room, calling her his princess. Had any of it been real? I thought of the gala last month, where Mark had toasted to my incredible wife, the heart of our home, while partners clapped and their wives smiled tightly, envious of our perfect life. I'd felt proud, secure. Now, I felt like a fool. I closed the laptop, my hand shaking, and walked to her bedroom. Mark's side of the closet was impeccable, tailored suits, polished loafers, the scent of his cologne lingering. I opened his briefcase, something I'd never done, and found a second phone, a cheap burner tucked in a side pocket. My fingers hesitated, then powered it on. No passcode. The message app opened to a thread with M. The latest text, sent last night. Miss you already. Jake's asking when you're back. Love you. My knees buckled. I sank to the floor, clutching the phone. Reading messages that stretched back years. Plans for weekends in Minneapolis, photos of a house Mark had bought, promises to make things right soon. And the worst, a text from Melissa. 6 months ago. She still doesn't suspect anything, does she? Poor Laura. Poor Laura. The words burned. I was the woman who'd sacrificed her career, her dreams, to build this life. I'd hosted judges in our home, smiled through Mark's late nights, believed his lies. And he'd mocked me, shared cruel jokes with a woman who lived the life I thought was mine. I wanted to scream. To call him, to demand answers. But something colder took root. I wouldn't confront him yet. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. I'd been a journalist once, trained to uncover truth. I would find every piece of his deception, every lie he'd spun, and I'd make him pay. I wiped my tears, replaced the phone exactly as I'd found it, and called Carl Dempsey, a private investigator I'd interviewed years ago for a story. I need you to dig into someone, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. My husband, and a woman named Melissa Harper. Carl's voice was gruff, but kind. Give me a week, Laura. If there's something to find, I'll find it. As I hung up, I looked out at the lake, its surface deceptively calm. Mark thought he'd played me perfectly. He had no idea who he was dealing with. This was no longer about saving our marriage. It was about reclaiming my life. The burner phone trembled in my hand as I stood in the shadowed corner of our penthouse garage, the concrete cold beneath my sneakers. It was 6:13 a.m. Mark's Mercedes long gone for his early meeting at the firm. I'd slipped out of bed after another sleepless night, driven by a need to uncover more before Carl Dempsey's report arrived. The phone screen glowed with a new message from him, sent just 10 minutes ago. Jake's sick again. Can you call the pediatrician? Miss you. My chest tightened. Jake, the boy with Mark's eyes, was real, not a figment of my spiraling imagination. I typed a reply, my fingers clumsy with rage, on it. Love you. I hit send before I could overthink it, my breath catching as 3 dots appeared. Melissa responded instantly. You're the best. See you Friday. I powered off the phone, my pulse hammering. Friday, 2 days from now. Mark had told me he was flying to Boston for a deposition. Another lie. I shoved the phone into my pocket and hurried back to the elevator, the hum of the city waking around me. In the penthouse, Lily was eating cereal at the kitchen island, her earbuds blasting pop music. Morning, Mom, she mumbled, barely glancing up. I forced a smile, pouring coffee to steady my shaking hands. Morning, sweetheart. Big day. She shrugged, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. Ethan was still asleep, his lacrosse gear strewn across the living room. My children, my anchors, deserved a father who didn't betray them for a second family. I wouldn't let Mark's deceit poison their future. But I needed more than a burner phone and a hunch to dismantle his carefully constructed world. Carl Dempsey's call came at noon, his voice low and urgent. Laura, I've got something. Meet me at the diner on Clark Street, 1 o'clock. Don't bring your phone. I arrived early, sliding into a cracked vinyl booth, the air thick with grease and coffee. Carl, a wiry man with graying stubble, dropped a manila envelope on the table. You were right about Minneapolis, he said, his eyes scanning the room. Mark's been living a double life for 4 years. Melissa Harper, 35, single mother of 2. Jacob, 4, and Ava, 2. Mark's on the birth certificates, listed as the father. I opened the envelope, my hands steady despite the nausea rising. Photos spilled out. Mark pushing a stroller in a Minneapolis park. Mark kissing Melissa on a porch. Mark carrying a birthday cake with 3 candles. The final document was a deed. A house in Melissa's name, purchased with funds from our joint savings, funneled through MH Consulting. MH Consulting isn't a firm, Carl continued, sipping his coffee. It's a shell company Mark set up to hide the transfers. Over $200,000 in 4 years, Laura. He's been bleeding your accounts dry. I stared at a photo of Mark laughing with Jacob, the boy's tiny hand clutching his. Why? I whispered. Carl leaned closer. Power. Control. He gets to play the perfect husband here, the doting dad there, and no one's the wiser. But there's more. He's drafting a trust, Laura. One that leaves most of your estate to Melissa's kids, not Ethan and Lily. My vision blurred, not with tears but with fury. Mark wasn't just cheating. He was rewriting our children's future, erasing them from his legacy. I left the diner with the envelope tucked under my arm, my mind racing. Confronting Mark now would be satisfying. But it would tip my hand. I needed to outsmart him, to expose him where it hurt most, his reputation. I called Karen Voss, the divorce lawyer whose name struck fear in Chicago's elite. Her office was a sleek fortress of glass and steel, her presence as sharp as her reputation. Laura, she said, reviewing Carl's evidence, this is dynamite, but we need to lock it down. Give me financial records, emails, anything tying Mark to that shell company. And don't let him suspect you know. Men like him thrive on control. They crumble when it's taken away. That night, Mark came home late, his suit rumpled, his smile practiced. Rough day? I asked, setting a plate of grilled salmon before him. He nodded, loosening his tie. Yeah, big case. You wouldn't believe the paperwork. I poured him wine, my voice honey-sweet. You work so hard, Mark. We're lucky to have you. He met my eyes, searching for something, then relaxed. Thanks, babe. Means a lot. I wanted to hurl the glass at him, to scream about Jacob and Ava, but I swallowed the rage, playing the devoted wife he expected. Every word, every smile, was a step toward his downfall. The next morning, I accessed Mark's home office while he was at the gym. His desk was a shrine to order. Legal pads, monogrammed pens, a photo of me and the kids from our last trip to Paris. I powered on his laptop, guessing his password, Ethan's birthday, predictably. His email was a goldmine. Messages to Melissa, sent from a private account, detailed their life. School schedules for the kids, mortgage payments, even a planned vacation to Disney World. One email, sent last week, made my blood run cold. Once the trust is finalized, we're set. Laura won't fight it. She's too soft. Soft. The word stung, but it fueled me. I forwarded the emails to Karen, then deleted the sent items, covering my tracks. But the real shock came when I opened a folder labeled Estate. Inside was a draft of the trust Carl had mentioned, leaving 70% of our assets to Jacob and Ava, with Melissa as executor. Ethan and Lily were mentioned only in a footnote, allocated a modest fund for college. I printed the document, my hands shaking with betrayal. Mark had built our life on lies. And now he was stealing our children's inheritance to fund his secret family. I was about to close the laptop when an email notification popped up from a lawyer in Minneapolis. Trust revisions look good. Ready to file next week. Next week. Time was running out. I met Karen again that afternoon, handing over the printed trust and forwarded emails. She scanned them, her lips curling into a predator's smile. He's sloppy, Laura. Arrogant. That's our advantage. But we need to move fast. If he files this trust, it'll complicate the divorce. I'm scheduling a forensic accountant to trace every cent he's moved. In the meantime, keep playing the game. Make him think you're clueless. I nodded, but doubt crept in. Could I keep up the charade? Smiling at a man who'd betrayed us so completely? Karen gripped my hand. You're not soft, Laura. You're steel. Use it. That night, Mark announced he was leaving for Boston in the morning. Deposition, he said, packing a suitcase. I noticed the extra shirts, the cologne he rarely wore. He was going to Minneapolis, to Melissa, to his other life. Be safe, I said, kissing his cheek, my lips brushing the skin of a stranger. As he slept, I slipped the burner phone from his briefcase and texted Melissa, flight's on time. Can't wait to see you. Her reply came instantly. Kids are so excited. Love you forever. I deleted the exchange, my resolve hardening. Mark thought he held all the cards, but I was rewriting the rules. The next day, with Mark gone, Carl called with a new lead. Laura, I tracked the pediatrician Melissa mentioned. She's got records of Mark paying for Jake's treatments, cash, no insurance. And there's a preschool in Minneapolis with Mark listed as an emergency contact. Want me to dig deeper? I didn't hesitate. Everything, Carl. I want his whole life on paper. As I hung up, Lily bounded into the kitchen, her ponytail swinging. Mom, can we get pizza tonight? Her innocence pierced me. She didn't know her father was a liar, a thief of their future. I hugged her tightly, promising pizza, promising myself I'd protect her and Ethan, no matter the cost. Friday night loomed, the night Mark would return, smug and unaware. I began planning, not just for the divorce but for a reckoning. Mark's annual firm gala was in 2 weeks, a glittering event attended by Chicago's legal elite. It was the perfect stage to expose him, to shatter the facade he built. But first, I needed every piece of evidence, every lie documented. The deeper I dug, the more I realized this wasn't just about Melissa or the money. Mark had orchestrated a betrayal so vast it redefined our past, our present, our everything. And I would make sure he faced the consequences, not in a quiet courtroom, but in the spotlight he craved. The phone rang at 2:17 a.m., shattering the silence of the penthouse. I jolted upright, my heart pounding, the burner phone I'd kept hidden under my pillow buzzing against my palm. The screen flashed, M, Melissa's initial, and dread coiled in my gut. I answered, keeping my voice low, mimicking Mark's casual tone. Hey, what's up? Melissa's voice was frantic, trembling. Mark. It's Jake. He's burning up. I can't get his fever down. You're in Boston, right? What do I do? My mind raced. Mark was in Minneapolis with her, not Boston, which meant he'd lied to her too, leaving her alone with a sick child. I swallowed, improvising. Take him to the ER. I'll call you soon. I hung up before she could respond, my hands shaking. Melissa's panic was real, human. And for a moment, I pitied her. But pity wouldn't undo Mark's betrayal or the fact that he'd left both his families dangling in his web of lies. I didn't sleep after that. By dawn, I was in the kitchen, sipping coffee, replaying Melissa's call. Mark had returned from his Boston trip last night, slipping into bed without a word. His cologne faintly mixed with a floral scent I didn't recognize. He thought he was untouchable, but his arrogance was my weapon. Carl Dempsey's latest report, delivered yesterday, had uncovered a new threat. Mark had hired a private attorney, not from his firm, to finalize the trust that would strip Ethan and Lily of their inheritance. The lawyer's emails, intercepted by Carl's hacker contact, revealed a meeting scheduled for tomorrow to file the documents. If Mark succeeded, my children's future would be gutted before I could file for divorce. Time was no longer my ally. It was my enemy. I met Karen Voss at her office that morning, the air thick with the scent of leather and espresso. She scanned Carl's report, her eyes narrowing. He's moving faster than I expected, she said, tapping a pen against her desk. This trust is a kill shot, Laura. If it's filed, we'll be fighting an uphill battle to contest it. We need to freeze his accounts now. I nodded, but my stomach churned. Freezing our accounts would tip Mark off. He'd know I was onto him. Can we do it quietly? I asked. Karen's smile was razor sharp. I know a judge who owes me a favor. We'll file an emergency motion, claim financial irregularities. Mark won't see it coming until it's too late. Back home, I played the dutiful wife, packing Mark's lunch while he read the morning paper. Big day? I asked, my voice light. He glanced up, his smile smug. Just tying up loose ends. You know. Securing our future. The words were a knife, but I smiled back, pouring his coffee. You always do. As he left, I noticed his briefcase, heavier than usual, a new lock gleaming on its clasp. He was carrying the trust documents. I was sure of it. I texted Carl, follow him today. I need to know where he's going. Carl replied within minutes on it. Stay sharp. That afternoon, Carl called with a bombshell. Laura, Mark didn't go to his firm. He's at a law office in the Loop, meeting with that attorney. I got photos, him handing over a folder. But there's more. I tailed him to a bank afterward. He withdrew $50,000 in cash. My guy at the bank says it's headed to an offshore account, tied to MH Consulting. My breath caught. Mark wasn't just securing his secret family. He was preparing to disappear, to leave me and the kids with nothing. The realization hit like a physical blow. This wasn't just betrayal. It was annihilation. I paced the living room, the city's skyline a gray blur beyond the windows. Karen's motion to freeze the accounts was in motion, but it wouldn't be finalized until tomorrow. If Mark suspected anything, he could move the money, file the trust, and vanish to Minneapolis or beyond. I needed to stall him, to keep him in Chicago until the gala, where I planned to expose him. But how? The burner phone buzzed again. A text from Melissa. Jake's okay. Just a virus. When are you back? An idea sparked, reckless but brilliant. I texted back, as Mark got delayed in Boston. Can you meet me in Chicago tomorrow? Bring the kids. Surprise trip. My heart pounded as I sent it. If Melissa came here, Mark's worlds would collide, and he'd be too distracted to finalize his plans. Her reply came quickly. Really? The kids would love it. Booking flights now. I deleted the messages, my mind spinning. Inviting Melissa was a gamble. It could backfire if she and Mark talked before she arrived. But it was my only shot to throw him off balance. I called Karen, updating her. You're playing with fire, Laura, she said. But her tone held admiration. Keep him busy tomorrow. The judge is signing the freeze order at noon. We'll have his accounts locked by evening. That night, Mark was restless, checking his phone constantly during dinner. I watched him, my face a mask of calm. Everything okay? I asked, slicing into my steak. He shrugged, but his jaw tightened. Just work. You wouldn't understand. The dismissal stung, but I leaned closer, touching his hand. Try me. I'm here for you. He pulled away, his eyes cold. It's fine, Laura. Don't worry your pretty head. The condescension fueled my resolve. He had no idea I was orchestrating his downfall, that every lie he told was another nail in his coffin. As we cleared the dishes, Ethan bounded in, his lacrosse stick in hand. Dad, you coming to my game tomorrow? Mark hesitated, then smiled. The perfect father. Wouldn't miss it, buddy. I seized the chance. Why don't we make it a family day? Game, then dinner out. Mark's smile faltered, but he nodded. Sure. Sounds good. I knew he was lying. He'd planned to meet his lawyer. But with Ethan's game and Melissa's potential arrival, he'd be trapped, unable to slip away. Later, alone in the study, I reviewed Carl's photos. Mark at the law office, his face tense, the folder clutched tightly. Another image showed him at the bank. A duffel bag slung over his shoulder. The offshore account was my biggest threat now. If he moved the money, I'd lose my leverage. I emailed Karen the photos, adding, he's planning to run. We need to stop him tomorrow. Her reply was instant. We will. Stay strong. As I climbed into bed, Mark's side empty, I felt a shift inside me. Fear was giving way to fury. To a clarity I hadn't known I possessed. Mark thought he could erase us, but he'd underestimated me. Tomorrow, I'd keep him tethered to Chicago, to the life he thought he controlled. The gala was 10 days away, my stage to destroy him. But first, I had to survive tomorrow, to outmaneuver a man who'd spent years perfecting his lies. The trap was tightening, and Mark was walking right into it. Melissa's voice cut through the crowded lobby of the Four Seasons like a blade, sharp and desperate. Mark, where are you? I froze, my hand gripping the champagne flute, as heads turned toward the auburn-haired woman clutching a toddler's hand, a young boy trailing behind her. It was Saturday, the day of Ethan's lacrosse game, and I'd orchestrated Melissa's arrival in Chicago to unravel Mark's lies. But I hadn't expected her to storm into the hotel where Mark was meeting his lawyer, her face flushed with panic. Jake's cheeks red from fever. Mark, standing near the bar with his attorney, dropped his glass, the shatter echoing as the room fell silent. Melissa, he choked, his face draining of color. I stepped back into the shadows, my heart pounding. The gala still a week away, but the collision I'd engineered happening now. Melissa marched toward him, Ava balanced on her hip, her voice trembling with betrayal. You said you were in Boston, Mark. I called you about Jake. He's sick, and you didn't answer. Why are you here? Mark's lawyer, a slick man in a pinstripe suit, backed away, sensing the storm. Mark stammered, his eyes darting, searching for an escape. This isn't what it looks like. I can explain. But Melissa wasn't listening. She thrust her phone at him, showing unanswered calls, her voice rising. Explain? You've been lying to me, haven't you? Who's Laura? My name on her lips hit like a thunderclap. Mark's gaze snapped to me, standing near the concierge desk, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. I stepped forward, my heels clicking on the marble floor, my voice steady despite the chaos inside. I'm Laura, Mark's wife of 20 years, mother of his 2 children, Ethan and Lily. Melissa's jaw dropped, Ava whimpering in her arms. The lobby buzzed, hotel guests whispering, phones discreetly recording. Mark lunged toward me, his voice low and venomous. Laura, stop this, you're making a scene. I laughed, sharp and cold. A scene? You built a secret family. Mark, you stole our money. You rewrote our children's future. This isn't a scene, it's the truth. I pulled a folder from my purse, Carl's evidence, and tossed it onto the bar counter, photos and bank statements spilling out. Mark with Melissa, the Minneapolis house deed, the trust draft. Melissa grabbed a photo, her hand shaking as she saw herself and her children. What is this? She whispered, turning to Mark. You're married? You told me you were divorced. Mark's composure cracked, his voice rising. She's lying, Melissa. She's unstable. She's trying to ruin me. But the evidence was undeniable. And Melissa's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of rage. You used me, she said, her voice breaking. You used my kids. Jake clung to her leg, confused, and my heart ached for him. A pawn in Mark's game, just like my own children. The lawyer, sensing legal peril, muttered an excuse and fled, but I wasn't done. I turned to Mark, my voice loud enough for the crowd to hear. You funneled $200,000 to MH Consulting, a shell company for your second life. You drafted a trust to give everything to Melissa's kids, leaving Ethan and Lily with nothing. And you thought I'd stay soft, too weak to fight. I pulled out my phone, playing a recording Carl had captured. Mark's voice clear. Laura won't fight it. She's too soft. Gasps rippled through the lobby, and Mark's face twisted with fury. You set me up, he hissed, stepping closer. I held my ground, my eyes locked on his. You set yourself up, Mark. The moment you chose to betray us. Security approached, drawn by the commotion, but I waved them off, my focus on Melissa. I'm sorry you're caught in this, I said, my voice softer. You didn't know about me, but your children deserve better than his lies. She nodded, tears streaming, clutching Jake and Ava tighter. I trusted him, she whispered. I wanted to hate her. But I couldn't. She was another victim of Mark's manipulations. Mark tried to salvage control, grabbing the folder, but a hotel manager intervened, demanding he leave. This is a private matter. Mark snapped, but the manager was unmoved, the crowd's judgment palpable. I leaned in, my voice a whisper only he could hear. The accounts are frozen, Mark. Karen's judge signed the order yesterday. Your offshore money's gone. Your trust is dead. Enjoy your freedom while it lasts. His eyes widened, realization dawning, but before he could respond, Melissa slapped him, the sound ringing out. We're done, she said, turning away, her children in tow. As security escorted Mark out, his protests fading, I stood alone in the lobby, the weight of 20 years lifting. The confrontation wasn't the gala I'd planned, but it was raw, public, devastating. My phone buzzed, Karen's text, judge approved the freeze. Forensic accountants on the accounts. You okay? I replied, better than okay. He's exposed. But the victory felt hollow. Ethan and Lily were still at the lacrosse game, unaware their father's lies had just unraveled before strangers' eyes. I left the hotel, the city's noise swallowing me, my mind racing. Mark would fight back. His legal connections were vast. And the gala was still a week away, my plan staged to destroy his reputation among Chicago's elite. I needed more evidence, something to ensure he couldn't slither out of this. Carl was digging into the offshore account, and Karen was preparing the divorce filing, but Mark's desperation made him dangerous. I hailed a cab, heading to Ethan's game, determined to shield my children from the fallout. They'd learn the truth soon, but not today, not while they still believed in their father. As the cab wove through traffic, I clutched the folder. Its contents a map of Mark's deceit. I'd exposed him, but the war wasn't over. He'd try to spin this, to paint me as the villain, to salvage his career. But I was no longer the soft wife he mocked. I was a mother, a fighter, and I'd burn his world to ashes before I let him hurt my children again. The Gala loomed, my final chance to ensure his ruin, and I'd be ready. With every lie he told sharpened into a weapon. I signed the divorce papers with a steady hand, the pen gliding across the page in Karen Voss's office, each stroke severing 20 years of lies. It was 1 week after the Four Seasons confrontation, and the ink felt like a declaration of freedom, not defeat. Karen watched, her usual sharpness softened by a rare smile. "You did it, Laura," she said, her voice warm. "He's got nothing left to fight with." I nodded, my throat tight, not with sorrow but with relief. The Gala, my plan staged to ruin Mark, was tonight. And though the lobby scene had already shattered his facade, I had one final act to ensure his world stayed broken, and mine could begin anew. The days since Melissa's eruption had been a whirlwind. Mark's legal empire crumbled as Carl's evidence, paired with Karen's forensic accountant, exposed his offshore account and fraudulent trust. The $50,000 he'd withdrawn was traced to a Cayman Islands bank, frozen before he could touch it. His firm, Kessler and Tate, suspended him, their statements citing ethical violations. A polite euphemism for the scandal now plastered across Chicago's legal blogs. Melissa, devastated but fierce, cooperated with Karen, providing texts and financial records that confirmed Mark's double life. She'd returned to Minneapolis, vowing to raise Jake and Ava without him, and I found myself respecting her strength. A mirror to my own. But the hardest part was telling Ethan and Lily. I sat them down the day after the confrontation, in our living room, their faces pale as I explained Mark's betrayal, softening the edges but not the truth. Ethan's fists clenched, his voice raw. "He's not my dad anymore." Lily cried, curling into me, her question piercing. "Why didn't he love us enough?" I held them, my own tears falling, promising they were enough, always. They didn't attend the Gala, staying with my sister, but their pain fueled my resolve. Mark had stolen their trust. I'd give them justice. The Gala was at the Art Institute, a glittering affair of Chicago's legal elite. I walked in alone, my black dress sleek, my head high. No longer the supportive wife, but Laura Bennett, a force. The room buzzed with whispers, eyes following me, the woman who'd toppled Mark Bennett. He was there, against all odds. His suit impeccable but his face haggard, clinging to the last threads of his reputation. I learned he begged to attend, claiming he could explain the rumors. Karen had ensured the firm's partners received Carl's dossier beforehand, every lie laid bare. I mingled, accepting condolences with grace, my smile a shield. A senior partner approached, his voice low. "Laura, we had no idea. Mark's finished here." I nodded, my eyes on Mark across the room, laughing too loudly with the judge. He thought he could charm his way out. But I'd planned my final move. Karen had arranged for a special announcement, approved by the firm's board, to address the recent concerns. As dessert was served, the managing partner took the stage, his tone grave. "We pride ourselves on integrity," he began, the room quieting. "Recent actions by Mark Bennett have violated that trust, effective immediately. His partnership is terminated, and we're cooperating with authorities on all allegations." Gasps rippled, Mark's face ashen, his glass trembling. I stood, raising my own glass, my voice clear. "To truth," I said, locking eyes with him, "and to those who fight for it." The room hesitated, then applauded, the sound drowning Mark's stunned silence. He stumbled toward the exit. Reporters waiting outside, their cameras flashing as he fled. But my victory wasn't in his humiliation, it was in what came next. Karen's motion had secured our assets, the penthouse, the children's college funds, all safe. Mark faced charges for fraud and embezzlement, his license under review. I didn't need his money or his name. I needed my life back. The next morning, I met Melissa at a coffee shop, an impromptu decision after her text. "Can we talk?" She sat across from me, her eyes tired but resolute. Jake and Ava with her mother. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice cracking. "I didn't know about you, I swear." I believed her, the sincerity raw. "We were both his victims," I replied, my hand touching hers briefly. "But we're not anymore." She told me she'd hired a lawyer, suing Mark for child support, and was starting over, her marketing business thriving despite the scandal. I shared my plans, returning to journalism, writing a series on women betrayed by powerful men. We parted not as friends, but as survivors, bound by a shared fight. The meeting shifted something in me. Forgiveness wasn't for Mark, it was for me, freeing me from his shadow. Back home, Ethan and Lily were adjusting, their anger easing into cautious hope. Ethan joined a mentorship program I'd found, channeling his energy into coding, while Lily started therapy, her sketches filling with color again. I enrolled in a journalism course, my first step back to the career I'd abandoned. My first article, published a month later, went viral, a raw account of surviving betrayal, inspiring letters from women across the country. I saved each one, proof I wasn't alone. The penthouse, once a symbol of Mark's success, became ours, redecorated with Lily's art and Ethan's tech gadgets. I hosted a small dinner for my sister, Karen, and Carl, toasting to new beginnings. Karen raised her glass, her eyes gleaming. To Laura, who turned lies into power. I laughed, the sound genuine, feeling lighter than I had in years. Mark faded from our lives, his trial pending, his calls unanswered. I didn't wish him ill. I wished him gone. The perfect family I'd clung to was a myth, but what replaced it was real. Ethan's proud grin at his first coding competition, Lily's laughter during our movie nights. My byline in print. I was no longer Mark's anchor, I was my own. One evening, I sat at my desk, drafting my next article, the city's hum a steady pulse outside. A letter arrived. From a reader in Ohio, her story echoing mine. Your words gave me courage, she wrote. I smiled, tucking it into my growing collection. The pain of Mark's betrayal had forged me, not broken me. I was Laura Bennett, mother, writer, survivor, authoring a story that was messy, fierce, and entirely mine.